All right, today we're going to jump into a devotional that has this really powerful direct command right at its core. It's called Stand Firm and Steadfast. But, what are we supposed to be standing against? And how in the world do we actually stay steadfast? So let's break this thing down and see what it's all about.
So right off the bat, this title, it's not just a nice little suggestion. It is the central command of the whole piece. Stand firm and steadfast. Think of it as a call to develop a very specific kind of spiritual toughness, and everything else we're about to look at is designed to help us get there. Now, you might expect a piece like this to start with some gentle encouragement, right? But nope. This devotional kicks off with a really strong, direct warning. The author clearly wants to grab your attention from the very first second and point out a major pitfall. And here it is. This single passage from 2 Peter is basically the blueprint for the entire devotional. It sets up this really clear contrast. On one hand, there's a danger to watch out for, being led away with the error of the wicked, and on the other hand, a direct command on how to avoid it, to grow in grace and in the knowledge of Christ. This is the roadmap for everything that's coming next.
Okay, so the text immediately zooms in on that first part. Because before we can figure out how to stand firm, we've got to understand what could make us stumble in the first place. So what exactly is this error of the wicked? The devotional asks this exact question. And its answer? Well, it might not be what you think. It's not necessarily about, robbing banks or doing these big, obvious evil things. The text points to something way more subtle and, honestly, probably a lot more common.
Yeah, the author makes it super clear that this error doesn't always show up looking like a classic villain. It can be sneaky. And to really drive this point home, the devotional pulls out this fascinating and kind of cautionary example from the book of Ecclesiastes. And this comparison just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the outward appearance. These were people who were always at the holy place. They were seen. They were even praised by everyone in town. But then you look at the inner reality, and it's a totally different story. The text says they never actually believed, their lives felt meaningless, and then, once they were gone, they were just forgotten. Poof. So this brings us to the devotional's big definition of the error of the wicked. And it's shockingly simple. It's just forgetting God. It's living your life, making your daily decisions, planning your career, setting your goals, without ever really bringing him into the picture. It's not about being some evil mastermind. It's just letting God become irrelevant in your day-to-day life. Okay, so now that the problem is on the table, the devotional makes a hard pivot to the solution. If the big danger is just forgetting God and drifting into a life that doesn't mean anything, then what's the antidote? The text is crystal clear. It's all about intentional, deliberate spiritual growth. And this isn't just framed as a nice little hobby, Spiritual growth is presented as a vital defense mechanism. It's what keeps you rooted, what makes you strong, and what stops you from getting swept away by, anything. It's the anchor that keeps you stable when things get rocky. So, how do you actually do it? The devotional brings us right back to that original scripture and lays out a 2-part game plan. First, you have to continuously grow in grace. And second, you have to intentionally grow in your knowledge of Jesus Christ. The key here is that these aren't one-and-done events. They're ongoing, lifelong processes. And if you commit to that process, well, here's the payoff. The text says it leads to a total transformation of your character. You become someone who is rooted and strong, who is steadfast and unshaken. You develop this unwavering commitment that makes you really hard to distract from what truly matters. All of this builds up to one final, really powerful call to action. The devotional ties it all together, contrasting that life of vanity, of being forgotten, with the ultimate goal, living a life that actually, truly counts for something. And here they are, the final marching orders. It's a perfect summary of the whole message. Don't forget God. Make a conscious choice to step away from the crowd that's just drifting along. Actively stand firm. And ultimately, make sure your life counts for something bigger than yourself. And so we're left with this. After breaking down the danger of a life of forgetting and the call to be steadfast, the devotional kind of turns the microphone over to us. It leaves us with this huge question to chew on. What does it actually mean to you to live a life that counts? Thanks for digging into this with me.